I wanted to take a minute today at the beginning of the podcast and say thank you to our sponsor, Huber Engineered Woods. Huber has actually been a sponsor of the podcast since 2020 when we decided to start this little endeavor. Without our sponsors, this content is probably not something that happens. But I think the best part about having Huber as a partner on this is it's an incredibly authentic alignment. Peter, Steve, and I all use Huber Woods. I've been using Advantech Subfloor for coming on probably 21 years now. I've been using Zip System and Zip System with the insulation on the back, the Zip R, since 2013. It's a system that I believe in. That systems approach where things play well together. They have design parameters that allow you to use their system for what you're working on. It works. Their tech support's there. Their knowledge is there. I've never had an issue with their product, and it's a great thing that they've decided to sponsor the podcast. So thank you, Huber Engineered Woods.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Truss Payments, and I'm going to read you the ad verbiage that they asked for us to include, and it's not necessary that we have to go word for word, but I'm going to read it because it is super important that some of their messaging gets out. However, stick around to the end of the ad because I'm going to talk to you about how we actually use the software as well. It is an all-in-one banking platform created specifically for our construction industry. It lets customers pay how they want to pay with a credit card or an ACH transfer. It is totally free to us, the builders. Credit card fee gets passed on to the client, and ACH is completely free to both parties. Mobile check deposits with no holds. You get paid instantly with no hold or reserves, which allows for better cash flow, which we all know is super important. We can pay our subs and vendors. It's easy to pay sub trades quickly via ACH, bank transfer, or check. We can print or we can mail for free. Unlimited charge cards for our staff, so we give those out to our team. We have real-time spend limits, permissions, and we get automatic receipt reminders. We get free rewards for using Truss. We get Truss charge cards and cash back, travel rewards, or gift cards to stores, top really good stores. And on the back office side of things, it syncs with our accounting software for our bookkeeping. And it's FDIC secured up to $3 million, and there are no monthly fees. So if you didn't catch that in the very beginning, it is free to use. If there are just ACH back and forth, free to all parties, free to us, free to the client. The only time that it costs anybody any money is if the client wants to pay with a credit card, and that's their cost, not you, the builder. This is a system that we at Aero Building have been using for a couple years now. It allows us to send an invoice, send a Truss payment link, and then the clients can verify their bank account at the beginning of a project, and then they could just click pay. We don't track or chase paper checks anymore. All of our payments, or nearly all of our payments at Aero Building, go through Truss Payments. It is a software that works, and it is free. So why not use it? It communicates with all of our other softwares that we use in-house. It communicates with, I'll be honest with you, we use QuickBooks. It communicates with QuickBooks. And if you want to do this type of thing through other accounting softwares, it's there's a $10 charge to do an ACH. There's a $20 charge, or there's a percentage cut. Like, those things are ridiculous. This system works. It's reliable. It's insured. It's a real trusted banking software that is designed specifically for us in this industry. I've used it for a couple years now. I think you should give it a look. It's free. Their customer service is also great. Truss, thank you for your sponsorship today.
I'm Jake Bruton, and welcome back to the Unbuild It podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I am joined in studio today by my two regular co-hosts. I don't mean that in a belittling way. My two usual co-hosts, Steve Basic.
Yo.
And Peter Yost.
Hello there.
And today we have a listener question that is going to spike a larger conversation about windows, window coatings, and how we talk about windows in general, or IG units, insulated glass in general. So I thought it would be easiest for us gentlemen if I read probably the whole question, and then we have a conversation, and we might have to come back and reread the question after we get there. So
I'm game.
Okay. Man, I got to do a better job of editing these. Hey guys, love the podcast. And of course, the puns from Steve are the ultimate highlight. That's how it starts.
It's relentless.
Doing a new build in climate zone 7, Western Wyoming. It's a heating climate. We have about 1.5 months where the temperature stays below freezing with the highs of 20 to 25 or 25 to 30. This is Fahrenheit. Lows, -10 to 0. Sometimes a few days in the -20s. I know the real answer may be that we're crazy and we should move, but the summers are really beautiful. Question is on window coatings.
Summer is like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Question is on window coatings. Also, the summer's not warm enough to really enjoy a swimming pool. So the summer's not that beautiful. So
where are they?
Western Wyoming.
Climate zone 7.
Yeah. Is it unwise to do an I-89 coating on the 4th surface given our climate? One dealer is recommending 366 on 2nd, I-89 on the 4th. Another is recommending against I-89 due to condensation risk. I read from the manufacturer that if the inside humidity is 30 to 40%, we could be okay. But I see anecdotal reports online of builders with windows of people in Canada that have major condensation issues. The comment section on GBA doesn't really reach all the way to my climate zone. I'm getting a quote on triple-pane to avoid all this, but I suspect that's out of the budget. Right now, I'm thinking I might just go with a 272 on the 2nd surface and avoid the water monster. What does the building science say? Now, that's a lot to digest. Yes. So let's start by saying he's numbering all the surfaces in a double pane unit. Let's talk about what those numbers mean so that we know where we're talking here.
Yeah. So first of all, you always number starting from the outermost face of the glass. So the one that's facing outdoors would be 1. The inside of that one would be 2. The outside of the inner one would be 3. And then the most inside face of a double pane is surface 4.
Yep.
And of course, the gas is trapped, whatever it is, whether it's air or argon or some other gas, between 2 and 3. These numbers, go ahead. Sorry.
This is important because things happen on each one of those surfaces.
That's right.
And so like when he's talking about this, he's talking about we're going to put 366 on 2 and we're going to put I-89 on 4. Where those things happen determine how they affect the glass. And that's why the numbers have to be there so that we know what we're putting on what surface.
Right. And understand that the low-E coatings are tiny little chips of metal that let through most, a very high percentage of the shortwave infrared compared to the long wave infrared. What's the difference between those two?
One's short and one's long.
Well, the short infrared have to be generated by a very, very high surface, like the sun. So this is the trick. If you have a coating that lets most of the IR in, right, because it's the shortwave infrared, when it hits an object inside the home, let's say like a couch, right? Well, that couch warms up and it starts to re-radiate that, but its temperature is low enough that it radiates long wave infrared. The little specks of the low-E coatings, they reflect the long wave infrared. So you've essentially explained the greenhouse effect where we capture the infrared, the thermal energy, because it gets through as a shortwave infrared and gets trapped as a long wave because the sun surface is what? I don't know, millions of degrees. The Earth's surface only gets up to 150 at best.
He's rounding.
It's 93 million miles or something, isn't it?
Like that, yeah. Yeah, on average.
So it's my couch's fault or it's the...
Yeah, that's a bad example. Okay.
It worked in my brain.
And then it gets a little more confusing because there are basically 2 types of low-E coatings. You can do what's called a sputter coat or a soft coat, and that actually gets put onto the glass after the glass has been made.
So it's an applied after the sheet of glass is made.
It's a coating.
Yeah.
And it's sputtered on so that you create this even distribution of these tiny, tiny little metal chips so that, and you're trying to change just one property of the glass, which is its thermal performance. And we get back to that because there's no such thing as affecting just one thing. The other type of low E coating is called pyrolytic or hard coat. And that is kind of baked into the glass as part of the, creation of the glazing process. So, the low E soft coat or sputter coat cannot be exposed to, outside conditions. So you can only do those coats on 2 and 3 because that's inside the glass, it's protected.
And for now, we're only talking about double pane. So when you say 2 or 3, those are interior. If we're a triple pane, 4 and 5 would be interior as well.
And when we'll come back to that because he talks about triple pane windows, and we have to talk about how they're different typically than dual pane. So you can also do more than one coating. So there's different places you can locate the coatings. There's different types of coatings, and you can do different numbers of coatings. But every time you put a coating on, you change more than just its thermal performance. So for example, these numberings that are the numbering system for Cardinal Glass, one of the largest manufacturers of IGUs in the United States, the first number is how many coatings you're putting on. And so,
so 366 is 3 layers of that coating.
It's 3 coatings. And the second number is the visual transmittance. And of course, that means what percent of the visible wavelengths make it through that glass. So if I put up a single sheet of glass with no coatings on it, that has a visual transmittance of somewhere around 85, 87, something like that. That means 85% of all the visible light makes it through. So if you go down
which is barely perceivable, right?
You would really have a tough. That's a good question because at what level you start to make the difference, a lot of it is if you put windows of different visual transmittance next to each other and in both low light and high light, you're more likely to pick up a difference than if it's on opposing surfaces where you can't see the two at the same time.
Which comes into play if you start buying windows from different manufacturers or you have...
Or you tune by aspect.
Tuning to aspect of the building. Yeah.
And here's the general rule of thumb. You should never let the visual transmittance center of glass, which is these numbers, drop below 50%. That is just too low, regardless of who it is or whether you're comparing it to a window next to each other. But here's the problem additionally to this, is that when the NFRC, the National Fenestration Rating Council, was created, window manufacturers wanted to have the properties be for the entire window. So that kind of makes sense for the U factor, which is thermal transmittance.
Not for VT.
Not for visual transmittance. You don't care what the visual transmittance of the frame is, right? You want to know what the glass is. So these numbers are helpful because they are basically center of glass, and that's what you need to know for a number of these properties. But every time you put a coating on a window, you play with the other properties. The solar heat gain, that's dependent on a lot to the type of coating you use. The sputter coats tend to have very low solar heat gain. The pyrolytic hard coats tend to have much higher solar heat gain. So there's all these moving parameters. And then the last one is the visual transmittance is just a percentage for all visible wavelengths. It doesn't mean that that coating is filtering out the color bands equally. So the low E coatings, all of them do a certain amount of color distortion because they're not letting 66% of each wavelength through. It's the overall average.
So we might get blue or green or slightly purplish or violet, whatever, depending on which we get.
And again, the further you get away from clear glass, the more likely to see it. But a lot of it is comparison. I had a client who had SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and she said, I can't have any low E windows in my building. And I said, well, you're not going to meet code if you don't do that. And what I didn't know, what she didn't know, is that different windows with different low E coatings can give colors that are something that she's likely to be less sensitive to. Blue is what she was sensitive to. It also matters whether it's low light conditions or high light conditions, or whether you're looking at it from the outside or the inside. So there are just so many moving parts to this. And most of the time when people pick windows, they're not even talking about the performance of the glass. They're talking about other things. And I think most
sight lines on frames.
Most window manufacturers, like you can tell, how would you explain all this stuff to a lay person? It's really complicated.
You blew past one thing. Why not below 0.5 on a VT number?
Because that is when even somebody who's not terribly sensitive will say, that's too dark. Okay. There's not enough light getting through.
I just brought up a window quote from an American manufacturer of triple glazed units. 0.46 is the VT number on those triples.
But that's the VT triples for the whole glass, that whole window.
Yeah. Because it's not the IG unit. I understand.
Yeah.
But
so
that means the IG is close, right? That means the IG is probably in the 60s.
Regardless of the size of the window, is that for the overall number for VT, if you get down to 0.41, you are definitely treading in dangerous territory.
Let's see. I can see if I get it. They don't give me just the glass. Sometimes some of these manufacturers will give you just the glass because they feel like it gives them a bump. Well, it gives them a brag.
And Jake and I pulled up the Cardinal Glass Technical Guide from 2021. It is kudos to Cardinal. Everything you ever wanted to know about glazing performance is in that document. Yeah. So if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, and Steve, I would say it's something like, somebody should be driving the bus when it comes to these performance issues with glass. So I don't care whether it's the builder or somebody, but somebody ought to be able to talk to the homeowner about, here are the trade-offs, or here's what's going to happen.
Yeah. We've put in lower than 0.5 VT. We put in like 0.45-ish.
Yikes. But as I said, the general rule of thumb.
Yeah, it's a general rule of thumb. But the thing is if they're all the same, it's hard to tell. The way you would tell is if for some reason you had those next to a different window.
Yeah.
That's on a porch that has much clearer glass or something.
And the other thing here is that I think, and I'm working with several clients on this very issue we're talking about, is you have to go and see the actual glass that you're going to get. Because some people say, whoa, that's not going to work. Some people get down to 0.45 and they say, what's the big deal? But we all vary quite a bit in terms of how sensitive we are to color distortion, how much it's graying, all those factors. I'm sort of with you, Steve. I think
consistency is the key, not the number.
Yeah.
Okay. So being able to see the piece of glass, I have to obfuscate this story somewhat because I haven't asked permission to tell this story. I have a builder friend that builds very expensive homes, like $20 million to $100 million homes. And they were ordering a window package from Germany. And one of the pieces of glass was about the same price as most of the homes that I build. And they had 3 options for the coatings and what it was going to look like. And the homeowners couldn't make a decision. And they were like, well, we're going to have to see it to be able to make a decision. Like we just need to, we need to get all 3 so that we can see how we're going to make this decision. And the builder said, well, like, I don't know how long it's going to take us to get samples, but this thing is going to take forever to get into production. Like we need to get it now.
Yeah.
And the client went, no, just order all 3. So they're literally spending like $3 million to get 3 pieces of glass. And they're like, we'll just install them one at a time and look at them in the building. And then the other 2 will just go into a storage unit.
Wow.
And I was like, you build in a completely different market, my friend. Good for you. I'm happy for you that that's the kind of client that you have, that they can spend a house budget on on 2 extra pieces of glass that are set aside.
So the other thing that was in this question was the I-89.
Yeah.
So,
and he says, condensation in cold climate on I-89.
Yeah. So in really cold climates, it's really hard to throw enough coatings to sort of get all the things that you want. So because the pyrolytic coating is not damaged by being exposed, but it's kind of gritty, they have played around with that formulation, and now they have a coating that they can actually put on surface 4, which means it's facing the inside of the building. So and that is I-89. It's because it transmits 89% of the total visual light, which is a really high percentage. But the way that it increases the energy performance, a side effect of that is it drops the actual surface temperature of surface 4. So it makes the overall energy performance better, but it drops the surface temperature, which increases the potential for condensation. So if you look in the technical guide for Cardinal, they will tell you for the different coatings what relative humidity you'd have to have at 70 degrees F before you got resulting condensation. And it's a significant temperature difference for the I-89. You know, it's more likely. So
yeah, I mean, he goes to the high side of 40 in his question. Like we can't even.
That's for his climate. That's not. Now, you know, what happens when you get occasional condensation? Because it's visible and it runs at the bottom, you just wipe it off. And the other thing is that if you're
using clients,
well, okay, granted, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, you have to have a lot of condensation for quite a bit of time before it damages the window. But what if you put down real heavy thermal curtains, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now you've got a cold surface. You've made it, there are thermal curtains that perform at an R2 or even an R3 level. That's going to make that surface really cold. And then you've got a lot of condensation. The condensation comes down and sits there all night long till you pull that blind up. So it's not as simple as how just the window is performing. It's what's the, moisture content of the air in the middle of the winter. How long does it stay where it can, be at a temperature below the dew point? It's an awful lot of variables.
Okay. So I'm hearing I-89 is probably not the right choice because of the risk is so elevated.
In cold climates like that, climate zone 7, you would have to be running your relative humidity. The general don't go below for human conditions is 30%, because below that you get static electricity and your mucous membranes tend to dry out. But we fly on airplanes all the time that are like 15% relative humidity at the air temperature. I'm not bothered by that, but there are people that, their nose bleeds and they're very uncomfortable. So,
that's a weird brag that he's not bothered by that.
It's a brag.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not bothered by that.
Turn this into.
Wimps.
I didn't think of it as a brag. I thought of it as, well, that means probably next to nobody has a problem with it.
If the frailty of Peter Yost,
like he's the canary in the cage or whatever.
I'm number than a bucket of bolts. I thought it was what you were going to say.
No.
Okay, so then he goes on to say, right now I'm thinking 272.
All right, so one last variable here. The reason that double pane IGUs rely so much on low E coatings is because they have to. To get the thermal performance, they need to do a lot of fancy control of different wavelengths. You go to triple pane, now you've got 2 air spaces. That changes everything, because now you can use a lot less what I would call distorting coatings, because you've got that extra airspace to raise the thermal performance of the window. So when we go to European...
Which is what insulation is dead air.
Yeah.
It's a lack of air movement.
But this is why, as part of switching to a true triple pane window, that you're not going to see as many distorting low E coatings, because they don't need to use as many of them. Do they still use them? Of course they do. But when you put 3 layers of a low E coating on, you're going to get impacts to the overall performance of the window that are not just about its thermal performance. So I think that if you're in climate zone 7, this is hard to say. You guys can give me quantifying qualification of this, but Moving from the best performing double pane to European triple pane, the cost difference, I think, is significant enough that it just slows everybody down. But maybe I've heard you guys
cost difference.
See, I've heard you say that before, which surprises the hell out of me.
I mean, there's cost difference. It depends on what you pick, right? You can sit there and say, all right, we're going to do this house. We're going to put in 3 lift and slide doors. Yeah, they're probably $1,800 a linear foot.
Right.
So that's going to, I mean, we've done window orders where the lift and slide door was half the cost of the order or close to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. Like the house
So
is
it kind of depends on
$45K
what
worth of windows and it's an $18,000 slider.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But if you don't do that, like we've had a bunch of recent projects where even the builder said, is this right, Steve? Because this number seems really low for the windows.
Well, so that I'm glad you mentioned that about the slider, because have you ever with a client say, let's do all the windows as European triple pane and we'll just buy one double pane door because it's so
most
much
of the
cheaper?
clients want the equalized performance.
Yeah, most. But do you ever have anybody that says, let's go with the $8,000 slider?
No.
Okay.
No. The other thing is, why is it so European windows typically, we can get a center of glass at 0.1, but the visual transmittance is 0.75.
It's frankly lack of or way less coatings, low E coatings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because of that double airspace or that double gas space.
I think looking at, because I'm going through a bidding process right now, and we're bidding 2 different European packages that have Saint-Gobain glass, and we're bidding 3 different American packages that have Cardinal glass.
All for the same project?
Yes.
Why?
Someone's having a hard time making up their mind. That's why. And it's clear looking at U factor and VT numbers and just the general performance of everything. Cardinal does not have it figured out the way that Saint-Gobain has it figured out.
Yeah.
Like they just are not able to get to the same performance metrics. It's a big difference. Like our highest performing European package is closing in on R9, and our highest performing American package is closing in on R5.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the general rule of thumb. Is it
with a visual transmittance that's probably
substantially lower.
Substantially lower on the lower E.
And remember, the more that you lower it, the more likely it is you're doing color distortion. Right? If you're up at, in the 70s and above, not only have more overall, but you tend to get less color distortion because you're just not putting on as many coatings.
Yeah.
So I wish I could do a better job with the clients that I work with to me, there are just so many advantages to all the aspects of performance of European triple pane, beefier frames, better hardware, triple gaskets. I mean, there's just so many ways that it's a different product.
Water managed systems.
It's like apples and oranges, but I can't seem to get people to make that jump from the apple to the orange.
Well, and on that particular project, one of the reasons that we end up going back to American is the architect and the client both want smaller sight lines. And I'm like, I get it, but if we just would
smaller sight lines,
they want frame widths that are tinier and everything.
See, the architect doesn't get it because I'll give them a secret. The beauty of European windows is they can be larger than traditional domestic windows. Right?
Because,
Saint-Gobain will ship you a bigger glass than what Anderson or Marvin will.
We're limited in UPVC to 8'6" in the longest dimension, 8 foot in the shortest dimension. Those are the limits for a window, for triple glazed fixed window. I can get an 8'6" by 8 foot tall window from them because it'll fit in the container. The 8'6" is the limit on the UPVC frame.
Okay.
Right. If I want to go to 10 foot, I have to move to aluminum frames, and the price does jump, probably almost double. And there's not a whole lot of domestic producers that'll do that. But the problem is a lot of architects will sit there and look at the windows and they're trying to substitute a 3x5 domestic window with a 3x5 European. And the problem is there's more frame.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you take that 3x5 and instead of ganging 3 of them together, you just get one large 9-foot by 5-foot, then the sight lines aren't so much of an issue anymore because the frame is a much smaller percentage of the glass area. So it's a proportion game when you're dealing with European windows that you can't make it a 1-for-1 exchange. You have to understand what it is that you're doing.
Interesting. I do want to make the title of this says window film. I don't know who wrote that, but there's a big difference between a coating and a film. And we have lots of films, but they're considered an aftermarket change in the performance of the window, which is yet another topic because the first thing that people do with windows is they change the way they perform somehow by adding either interior, exterior coverings, coatings, not coverings, films, attachments, you name it.
So
did we butcher this adequately?
You haven't made a recommendation, and I was hoping you would just say, do this, don't do that. I would say no to I-89 because of condensation risk. But he did say, what do you think about 272, basically?
Well, so 272 only has 2 low E coatings and has a slightly higher visual transmittance. But I would say you need to have your client take a look at both. Yeah. Because that triple, which, goes down to 66, you went from 72 to 66, but the color distortion may be more significant adding that third coating.
Yeah. The other thing he says is we're thinking about triple glaze units. One of the things that Steve taught me is the windows, the envelope, and the HVAC are one line item. That's the comfort package of the home.
Yeah.
If you're putting in triples, you can probably reduce your duct runs. You can not have to throw things all the way over to the outside wall to wash windows. You can reduce the mechanical size. You can reduce projection on operational costs of the building. You can hopefully offer increased comfort level. Like there's all sorts of trade-offs that go there where it's like, yes, I am investing more money in upfront costs on the purchase price of the windows, but now I am spending less money on X, Y, and Z when it comes to mechanicals, operational costs, all those sorts of things. That there may be a very simple push-pull trade-off where it absolutely is not more financial expenditure on your mortgage up front.
I think what's frustrating for a lot of prospective homeowners is if they go on the internet, they're going to understand sort of how complicated window selection is. And they're going to realize pretty quickly, a lot of my clients, that neither my builder nor my architects know any help on this at all. They simply go with what the local rep is talking about. So
I always use the example of that total comfort package. We increased our budget on windows on our personal house, but yet the HVAC package for our house was about half of what it would have been had we had traditional forced air systems and regular mechanical loads. Like, granted, my house was just right before COVID, but the mechanical system for a 4,300 square foot house with 4 zones was $18,000. That's next to nothing. Adjust for your market, that's Midwest pricing. But that's a next to nothing thing where we did a house very similar to it not too long after that was like $54,000 that had double pane windows. That was a very similar size that had much longer duct runs that we couldn't just have one mini split that took care of 1,200 square feet. So
it's a tough topic, but it's one, I mean, I can't think of anything that's more sort of technologically complex and has an impact on your building than your glass.
How
about the thermodynamics of the re-entry surface of the space shuttle?
Huh?
I was just looking for things that were potentially more complicated.
Technical glass.
You have me there.
From Cardinal.
Okay.
That'll be Pete's resource on this one.
It will.
And it is a riveting read.
I've said this before, but I have an article that I wrote for Building Science Corporation on the color distortion. And the title was Singing the Blues in the Key of Low E. It's my best title ever.
Gets to pick it. Don't we get to vote on whether or not it's the best title ever?
You can.
Okay. Steve, do you have any closing thoughts?
I do. I have just recently read a study. You're going to be very excited about this. It was about trampolines. Do you know when the highest use of trampolines is? Springtime.
You know, I'm a little worried that we're now starting to guess them because
That's good. Springtime's funny.
There you go.
That's close.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
Okay. On that note, if you have questions or comments, questions at unbuilditpodcast.com. And until next time, have a good day.
See ya.
Bye-bye.